Yeah, so as Emily said, big news by Manchin over the weekend, although we viewed this as, throughout the years, he's been an impediment to BBB. And this, remember, it was twice, maybe even three times as big as this, and they got it under $2 trillion, now down to $1.7 trillion. And of course, it's dead in the water as it stands right now. But I don't want to dwell too much on what happened, but just of note, he's been under attack by the left and the White House. It was kind of personal over the weekend. And if these attacks on him, in my opinion, he's a tough guy. He's from West Virginia. He's been through tougher battles in his long career. But if these continue on a personal basis and aren't repaired, I think there is a risk that he switches parties. And I think he'd likely become, some of the news accounts are talking about him becoming an independent, still caucusing with the Democrats. I don't see him going to the Republican Party, but if he does, if I'm not mistaken, this happened 20 years ago in the early Bush years. And there was a Republican senator named James Jeffords who switched parties to the Democrats with a 50-50 Senate. And it threw the leadership, it threw the control of the Senate to the Democrats and Tom Daschle. And I know that you and Tom Tobin will remember Tom Daschle. And that abruptly ended all of Bush's domestic and most of his agenda early on. So this does have an impact if he does switch parties. But moving ahead, I think that what we're looking at is a potential vote still. I think Schumer is going to bring the vote up again, or the bill up in January, and just let the chips fall where they may. But there's a train of thought, and I was at a function last night and talking to a couple of Democrats, that Manchin may be using this as leverage. So while the 1.7 is dead, there are still elements of there that he likely supports and would garner some support from West Virginians, child care tax credit, et cetera. But this next bill, if it were to move forward, whether or not it's called Build Back Better or what, will have Manchin's imprimatur on it in a big, big way. So a lot is going to hinge, I think, on his treatment over the next couple of weeks. And then secondly, I don't think they're going to give up, but they are perilously close, as we all know, to this 50-50 margin and losing control of things. So he's got to see some signs of inflation. He's got to see they've got to address the debt. And then the timeline of some of these programs. I mean, they have, in order to get to the 1.7 trillion, they've had to either shorten the lifespan of some of the programs or lengthen them. And he said, we're just kind of doing this willy-nilly, and he's right. So I think that if they come back, it will likely be, I'm going to have to give props to my colleague, Paul Glencher, but it will likely be significantly lower than the 1.7. And we're looking at a springtime event, not a January, February event now.
Yeah, and then let me add, Keith, we talked about this a few weeks ago. The Build Back Better bill, a big chunk of it's paid for by reform of the pharmaceutical pricing system in the U.S. And that's been a big overhang over pharma and biotech generally, because it would have fairly significant impact on innovation and pricing and a lot of other dynamics. One of the things that JT mentioned is that there are parts of the bill for which there's agreement. And one of those is a reform of the Medicare Part D, the prescription drug benefit, which was developed bicamerally, bipartisan. It's actually good policy. And if you combine that with the announcement on the DRE fees, we could actually see some pretty significant positive reform on the pricing that, believe it or not, actually saves people money at the pharmacy counter. That would be substantive and meaningful, although probably a negative for CVS, who really depends on that system, and some of the managed care organizations like UNH and Anthem, which are already navigating away from it.
Hey there, Hedgeye Nation, or if you're not part of Hedgeye Nation, thanks for watching Hedgeye on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to click on the button below there. Subscribe to our YouTube page. You can also follow the link in the description to our website to get even more great investing content.